Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are listening, looking at this. Thank you for joining us for once again Fun Food Friday. You know, this is Michelle's favorite day of the week because we get to have fun with our food. And today we have the fantastic, the fantabulous Dr. Tom Lewis, the rock star of bone broth. So if you did not see part one, you need to go back and look at part one so that you can better appreciate the beauty of what we're going to be doing today. Rock and roll, Dr. Lewis.
Well, just to summarize what we did is we took a variety of bones, some with some meat and fat on them, some just straight bones, some knuckles, the whole thing that I got from a local farmer, and I see where the cows graze and I get my beef from him. And then the first thing we did is we put it in our big pot here and we let it settle to the bottom and covered it with apple cider vinegar, slow boiled it overnight, 24 hours with the apple cider vinegar, because the acid will pull out more minerals. Then we covered it with water to a full height, and then over a period of 5, actually 7 days now, let the water slowly evaporate with just the slightest little boil. And now what we're going to do is process it, because I also threw liver in, and I threw some radish in, some garlic in, some other herbs and spices, salt and pepper. My favorite seasoning for the lazy people like me is organic sea kelp delight seasoning from Bragg's, which has just a potpourri of, I know you probably can't see it, but potpourri of things: garlic, red bell pepper, granulated carrot, tomato, orange peel, savory, oregano, turmeric, bay leaf, everything you want. Rather than having 12, 15, 25 different things, just one. Okay. And here's my salt mix, and we'll discuss how to make a proper salt mix sometime in the future. It's not just the unrefined sea salt. There's more to it than that to make a really healthy salt. Sodium potassium pump, look it up. So anyway, this is our big pot, and what I'm going to do is make a mess. So what I want you to see is that this isn't the color of a Trader Joe or even a Whole Foods bone broth. It's a lot darker. And I got all kinds of nice goodies floating around in there.
That is beautiful. That is so.
You may not want all the floaties. So what I have here, and I'll show you how I prep it. What I have is another pot and a colander to do a little filtration. So let's see. I'm a chemist, so I should be able to do this without incident, but you never quite know. And it's still, I forgot to turn it off, so it's a little bit warm. Okay. But we're just going to pour it off.
So now, why is it a little bit warm? I thought you had made this last week.
Say it again?
Why is it a little bit warm? I thought you made it last week.
Oh, I've been cooking it all week, and I just forgot to turn the burner off.
Oh, wow. You've been cooking
it all. I figured the longer you go, the better.
Wow, that's some rich stuff, man. Now, one thing to consider while you're pouring that, I have to give a shout out to my son, Common Ra, because he said something interesting to me yesterday. He said that, he had been doing some research about people who use gas stoves, and the fact that when you use gas stoves, you have to be cognizant of the pollution that's created in the house. When people originally started using gas things to cook food, they had holy houses, meaning that houses weren't like insulated and, made into death traps. And so you had the release of the CO2 from the house. But now we live in virtual death traps where, there's no ventilation in the house. So what I would suggest, what I'm thinking of doing is I'm just going to do this using an electric burner, not doing this on a gas stove, because I don't want you guys to be passing out in the middle of the night from CO2 poisoning. So I strongly suggest, and that's just from me, from my perspective, that when you're doing your bone broth, to consider, even if you get one of those little itty bitty electrical burners, they have those in Walmart, little one burner things, so that you can use an electric burner when you're doing this. Your thoughts, Dr. Lewis?
I use electric. I have a gas stove upstairs. This is my downstairs processing area, but here's some of the stuff that's left over, and I'll show you how I'm going to use that. But
Yeah.
I put liver in here, as if you recall, if you watched the first thing.
Yeah.
There's no liver in here anymore.
It's all sludge.
Gone. I have some chunks of meat, but I can find no liver, and my dog is crying right now because she's not getting liver. But you talk about some of these barbecue places. Look at this nice piece of fatty meat.
Wow.
That contributed the fat to it, and it's absolutely delicious. Taste a little of the apple cider vinegar, but not much.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. Now, if I just show you, I'll put this aside in here. But don't get rid of all the particulate. That's good as well. And this has a lot of fat in it, so you can see the layer. The light, the fat rises to the top, and the rest of it settles to the bottom. But keep it that way, and you want the fat. And when you refrigerate it or freeze it, that fat will coagulate, and it'll look a lot like butter. But just break it off, and if you make rice or quinoa or add it to a stir fry, make sure the fat goes in there too, because that's really, that's like the beef tallow. It's really, really healthy fat. So all I'm going to do now is just show you one tip I use. Because I have a full pot here. I can't possibly use all that bone broth, so I have to freeze it. Now, I will say, some of you may not like this concept, and I actually don't have any quarts, but I'll just use one example, is, how many Tupperwares do you have? And, it's challenging you can't really put it in glass. I will put some in glass in the refrigerator and use that up. But see, I'll use the bone broth straight up to make the rice and quinoa or whatever else I'm doing. So it all gets absorbed in there. And what you'll find is there's not a strong flavor in those types of foods that you make by adding the water that all gets absorbed in. Don't add water at all. Just use straight up bone broth. You want to get as many nutrients as possible. So I'll put some in a Tupperware that I've used over and over and over again, so it stops. When you use it a lot, if you get a Tupperware like this and you're really concerned about it, just put some hot water, some soap in there, and you'll leach out the leachables. At some point, it's not going to have infinite leachability of these plasticizers or whatever else. But mainly a polypropylene one like this doesn't really have a lot of contamination. But I will use glass. But let me just show you how I become very efficient at storing this in the freezer. Just give me a sec.
And the other thing to consider if you're going to use a plastic container is to make sure that whatever you're going to put in the container is cold, and therefore you're going to have less likelihood of leaching from the plastic container. And then the other thing to realize is that we're using these because you're going to put them into the freezer. So they're going to be freezing very quickly, and the amount of leaching that could occur is minimal.
Now, the mistake I made, and I knew I was going to spill something, which I just did, but that's all right. Now my kitchen stove top is very healthy because it just got a bunch of bone broth spilled on it. But that's me, clumsy. That's why I did theoretical chemistry, not lab chemistry. So what I'm going to do is take a Ziploc and put it in a bowl. Okay. And so put the liquid in there.
Okay.
I have a little metal measuring cup, and I won't do a whole lot in there, but right now. But then you put it in the, seal it up and put it in the freezer like this. And then in a day or two, you can separate the two and it won't stick in your grates or anything like that. And so you can just have the bone broth in a container like that. And the good thing is when you freeze it, it's not going to really leach as much. You know, it's everything chemically related or reaction related is very driven by temperature. So when this is frozen, you know, you'll get really no leakage or leaching or very little. So when you take it out, you thaw it out, still be pretty cold, pour it into a glass container in your refrigerator, and you're good to go.
Exactly.
So that's kind of how I do it. Now I have all the debris.
All the sludge.
No, that's not liver either. The liver completely broke down and went into the broth. And let's just take a little taste here. I hate liver, okay? I do cod livers, which I'll show you. I get Icelandic wild-caught cod livers and use this in stir fries, and it's very mild. So I actually don't mind the cod livers. They're almost like shiitake mushrooms in terms of their texture. So if you can get past the fact that it's liver, you'll be all set. But this here, nice and fatty. Absolutely no flavor of the liver whatsoever. Still, like I said, it's still a little residual of the apple cider vinegar taste, which I don't mind whatsoever, but it's actually very mild.
So now, what about the sludge that you have? Does it have any purpose? Can you use it for anything?
What I'll do with the sludge is some of it is just petrified bone. So here's a piece of petrified bone, and it's very light compared to when it started, almost like styrofoam if you cook it long enough. But I'm not going to get rid of any of the sludge. I'm not doing it for show right now because I've got to go work in it. But I'll separate all the bones, give them to my dog, whatever. Just toss them out. But what I'm going to do is any sludge, I'll put in a container and I'll use that for cooking. You know, anytime you do a stir fry, pan, whatever, making quinoa rice, whatever, put the sludge in. There's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And think about it. How harmful can it be? It's been boiled for 5 days. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm saying it's probably good also for making gravies, as to act as thickener. You know?
Yeah, I don't make gravy ever, but nothing wrong with that. See, I'm very athletic and I need carbs, so I make a lot of rice and things like that. You can put it in mashed potatoes, anything soft. You can even add it to squash. I mean, we need nutrient density, and there's no better way to achieve a very inexpensive nutrient density broth than making bone broth. So that's it. Who's going to come help me clean up the mess I just made when I spilt that little cup worth of?
Hey, Nikki, come on over. Come lick.
Hey, that's a great idea. I'll just put her up on the counter and she'll lap it. She does the pre-cleaning of everything I have anyway before I wash it. It goes in the dishwasher.
Exactly. There you go. You got your dishwasher right there.
I don't know who the heck she is, but she's missing out. But it's nice and greasy. You get the bone broth from Trader Joe's, and it's just they got rid of all the fat. They didn't use the fat. You need fat. Fat are lipids. Lipids. Every membrane in your body, brain, neuron, bone, red blood cell, phospholipid bilayer. You need lipids for repair. So don't discount. The bone broth has all the minerals, micronutrients for repair, but the fats too. So it's really a perfect 1-2 punch for a healthy food component to help you repair from living.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gents, there you have it. The closure of making your bone broth and processing it and storing it for a long time if you're making a lot of bone broth, especially if you're a single person. We enjoy sharing this with you. We hope that you will share it with others in your community. And
Very
remember
simple.
to like and click the notification bell so that you too can participate when we come on each week for Fun Food Fridays. Until next week, my lovelies, peace and blessings.
Mm.